When you look at the startup scene in the Gulf, you see all the flashy headlines, right? Massive funding rounds, huge IPOs, these incredible success stories. But behind all that shine, there's a whole different story playing out. It's a silent crisis, really, one built on pressure, burnout, and shame. And it might just be holding the entire region back. So let's break down what's really going on behind the curtain.
To really get this, we have to start with a huge difference in mindset. I mean, in a place like Silicon Valley, failing is practically a rite of passage. It's almost a badge of honor on your resume that says, hey, I took a big swing and I learned something. But in the Gulf, oh, it's a completely different ballgame. Failure isn't just a business outcome, it's a social verdict. And it doesn't just stick to you, it spreads to your entire family, damaging their reputation and their honor.
So that's the what. But the real question is why? Why is there such a massive, fundamental gap in how failure is perceived? Well, the answer isn't just about business culture, it goes way deeper, right into the cultural fabric of the region itself. And that brings us to our first big idea here, the high cost of shame. We're going to explore how these really deep-seated cultural norms are shaping the very nature of risk for entrepreneurs in the GCC. Okay, so the key to understanding all of this is a single, incredibly powerful concept, IAB. Now, it translates to shame, but it's so much more than that. It's this core idea that your actions, especially a big public failure, don't just reflect on you. They reflect directly on your family's honor, their social standing. For generations, business has been tied to family identity, so a company collapsing isn't just your failure. It's seen as a stain on the entire family name. And the fallout from IBIT, it's huge. We're talking about real damage to the family's reputation, a hit to their social standing for years to come. It creates this kind of total exposure that just doesn't exist in Western startup cultures. And the result? Well, you get a lot of incredibly talented people with brilliant ideas who look at that risk and just decide, nope, not worth it. They end up taking a stable corporate job instead. And listen, this isn't just a vibe or a feeling. It's actually measurable. If you look at the data from the Global Entrepreneurship Monitor, it consistently shows that the fear of failure among potential entrepreneurs is way higher in countries like Saudi Arabia and the UAE compared to major Western hubs. This cultural pressure creates a real, quantifiable barrier to innovation. But you know what they say? With great pressure comes the need for a release valve. And in our next section, we're going to see how the ecosystem is starting to build its own unique solutions, creating these safe spaces where founders can finally be vulnerable. One of the most fascinating things to come out of this pressure cooker is the rise of so-called fuck-up nights. Seriously. In cities all across the region, these events have become this crucial, confidential outlet where founders can actually get up on a stage and talk openly about their biggest professional failures. You know, the bad calls, the money they lost, the companies that went under. And the real magic of these events is what they do for people. As one source put it, they act as a psychological pressure valve. Just hearing your peers, people you respect, admit to the very things you're terrified of, it normalizes the experience. It helps shift failure from being this heavy moral judgment into just a difficult but shared part of the entrepreneurial journey. And this isn't just a grassroots thing anymore. The wider system is starting to wake up and recognize that founder burnout is a serious operational risk. We're now seeing new startups, like one called MindMe, popping up specifically to focus on founder mental health. Investors are finally realizing that a founder who's psychologically depleted is a huge liability, no matter how great their business plan is. This kind of community response, though, it highlights a really interesting tension. There's this growing gap between what the official rules say and what social reality feels like, creating what our sources call a two-layer risk environment. On one hand, you've got governments making some really impressive moves. The UAE and Saudi Arabia have totally modernized their bankruptcy laws. They've reduced the criminal penalties for business failure and created much clearer processes for winding down a company. So from a purely legal standpoint, it's actually safer than ever to fail. But here's the catch. On the other hand, the social penalties are still very, very real. A founder whose business failed might have a hard time getting a bank account or even just renting an apartment. They can get informally blacklisted from business networks. It can even affect their personal relationships, their marriage prospects. So while the state might be willing to forgive a failure, society often doesn't. So what's the way forward here? In this last section, we're going to look at the critical shift in mindset that has to happen and explore the enormous cost to the whole region if it doesn't. It really all comes down to this. For the Gulf's innovation economy to truly reach its potential, failure has to be completely reframed. A founder who has shut down a company isn't someone to be ashamed of or avoided. They are someone who has gained invaluable first-hand experience in what it takes to execute. They've learned lessons you can't get in a classroom.
And this change can't just be a hashtag or a nice idea. It has to be modeled by the most powerful players in the entire ecosystem. We're talking about investors being willing to back founders who have failed before. Accelerators need to build programs that normalize setbacks. And big companies need to actively go out and hire founders from closed startups because they value that hard-won experience.
And the stakes here are incredibly high. One source put it so powerfully: when founders are too afraid to take big risks because of the fear of shame, the cost isn't just to them individually, it's systemic. It becomes a drag on the entire economy's potential for innovation.
So, I'll leave you with this final, critical question. When the fear of aibe, the fear of shame, is so powerful that it silences a region's most ambitious, most creative minds, what is the true cost? What brilliant ideas are we never even getting to see?